there, I'm Ann Cohen. I am a visual artist, mainly a painter, and today I want to tell you a little bit about my studio workspace. A lot of my friends ask me from time to time, how do you have this set up and what are you doing here? And so I thought it might be helpful. If you're like me, I'm usually very curious about the workspaces of other artists when I am in a demonstration or a tutorial, watching a video. And so I love looking around to see what all they have in their workspace. So today I want to just show you where I work and how I work, and hopefully inspire you to, wherever you are, you can find a place to paint and pursue your craft. I've been a studio artist for 30 years and I've been a professional artist for 8. And in that time, I have had a variety of workspaces, from an upstairs bonus room to an off-site, fabulous warehouse sort of workspace. But I have found in the past 8 years or so, the most productive and effective workspace for me has been a spare bedroom in my home. And I know you may not have the luxury of a spare bedroom. Maybe you still have kids at home and all of the rooms are still being used for that. But I want to give you a few tips and suggestions that maybe you can set up a workspace on a dining room table or a small desk in a corner, someplace that you can keep it ready and available to you when inspiration hits. I think that's what has been the main secret behind setting up in a spare bedroom. It is very convenient. I can work for a little while, close up my paints, go about my day, come back the next day, come back 3 or 4 days, and sometimes it's even been a week or two later, and my space is still set up and waiting for me. So when that's possible, I encourage you to find that kind of a situation. But if it's not possible, I'll show you a few quick, easy tools to use so that you can pack up fairly quickly and easily and then open back up when you're ready to work again. First of all, I'd like to talk to you about easels. And if you have a sort of a temporary makeshift space in your home on a dining room table, you can easily put plastic drop cloth from Home Depot, Lowe's, a plastic tablecloth, something, to protect your table. You can use that on your dining room table. Hobby Lobby has these easels that are just a tabletop easel. And the cool thing about it is it opens up to accommodate a rather large canvas, so it's very flexible and versatile. If you have a smaller canvas panel, it can rest easily here against this baseboard. So it's a great starting tool if you have a portable, temporary type workspace that you can't leave set up all the time. This is my first studio easel that I ever had. It's metal, and it is easy to fold up and store in a closet if you, once again, only have a temporary type space to work with. This studio easel is a great one. I highly recommend it. What I like in particular about it is the little groove that is along here and also up in the top bar. It lends itself well to working with smaller panels, canvas panels, gesso boards, things like that. It'll grip and stay in there very well. But it's also thick in case you are painting on a gallery wrapped canvas. So it really is very versatile. It will hold a very large canvas or even smaller canvases. These days I work with a large wooden studio easel. It's on wheels, and so I can move it around as need be. Right now I have it set up, I have a still life just beyond my canvas over here, so I can look and see it. Sometimes if I'm painting from a photograph or something like that, I like to put it on a TV monitor and I can turn it and look at it that way. So having a canvas on wheels, if you have a little bit more permanent space, I love this Richardson model. I can paint up to 48 inches. I've easily done that using this easel. I like having my easel set up on this corner is opposite the door to the room. So it's on the diagonal and I can stand back and examine my work a little bit better having that distance between me and the canvas. So that's something to think about when you're setting up in your space, someplace where you can step back and look at your work, come back to it. A habit that I created when I was in art school is that at the end of the day, before I pack up my paints, I like to look at my work, make any notes of things that I want to fix, my next steps, where I want to go with my painting, and I put it on a little post-it note on my tabouret so that when I come back the next day I can remember what I was seeing before I left. Also, sometimes walking away from our painting and coming back to it, looking at it with fresh eyes, we can see new things. So I love having the opposite corner. That's where my canvas and easel typically are set up in my studio. Next, I'd like to talk to you about a tabouret. A tabouret is I think it comes from probably a form of table. I'll have to look that up. But a tabouret is a surface where we keep our palette and our brushes, just a work surface that's close to the canvas. And what is important is being able to set up your still life or whatever it is you're looking at pretty much an eye level of your canvas. And then I like to have my paints just easy reach so that when I'm working, my eye doesn't have to move too much because my visual memory might shift the more I look away. So I encourage you to have a setup where your tabouret is very convenient to your canvas, about hip height. I'm using a Craftsman tool chest on wheels, and so once again I can roll it wherever I want to put my canvas, my easel within my studio space. And this is really big over the years. When I started out, I had a smaller tabouret. I'll include a photo of that in this video. It is the model that I used when I was in art school, the kind that my art professor had in our studio for each of the students. We each had a tabouret like that. And so when I set up my own home studio, I just loved it so much. It was not a very expensive model, got it from Dick Blick, but once again that was probably 30 years ago. I think they're probably still available today, but it's just big enough to hold a palette, my water, or if I'm using oil paints, my little turpentine jug, and I like to keep my brushes in a jar. Easy reach right there. So for palettes, the kind of palette I like to use, I've used a variety once again over the years. I have the fancy wooden, the professional looking wooden where you put your thumb in the hole and have all your paints laid out there. A lot of times we buy things because we want to put on some sort of uniform or expectation of ourselves. But I have found keeping it simple, very practical, keeps me showing up at the easel. So those things are fun to have. I know there are a lot of professional artists who use them regularly, but for me, I love using this Masterson Stay Wet palette box. I use the paper palettes. This one is gray mattered. And what I love about it is when I'm done, I can just pull the paper up and throw it away. Particularly if I'm using oil paints, they can be so difficult to dispose of, and so this keeps it really easy. Tear it out, throw it away. And so I highly recommend the gray matter paper palettes. They come in a variety of sizes. I love this size. I think it might be 12 by 16. These Stay Wet boxes, and once again, when I'm finished painting for the day, I just close it up and my acrylics will stay wet for a couple of days easily. Something else I keep handy is just a little spray bottle, and I use it to spritz my acrylic paints to help keep them wet during a painting session. And then a lot of times if I'm not finished with my painting, I will spritz it before I close my box at night, so they'll still be a little bit wet for me in the morning when I paint again. So great handy tool. The Stay Wet paint boxes, Masterson's Stay Wet paint boxes, also come with a foam that you can moisten and then put it underneath a paper palette. Those work really well too. I've had acrylics stay moist and usable for a couple of weeks that way, so it's a good way to conserve your paint. So they take a little bit more effort to set up because you have to soak that foam pad for like 15 minutes in scalding hot water or something like that. So the paper palettes are just simple and easy, and like I say, for me, the easier, the simpler I can keep it, more straightforward, the more likely I am going to be to show up at the easel and do the work. If you are fortunate enough to have a spare bedroom where you can paint, I love this one in particular because it has two windows on opposite corners, and so it lets in a lot of natural light, morning light. There's no real direct light coming in here, so the shadows are kind of at a minimum, but I picked the bedroom with two windows for my studio space. With regard to lighting, I don't have any track lighting in the ceiling. There's a ceiling fan with an overhead light. I despise overhead lights. In any given room, I would much prefer to have the lighting be from another layer within the room. So it's true in my workspace. I do have an overhead light here. I love to use natural daylight, a warm daylight, not a fluorescent light, not a cool white. I love to use warm light as close to daylight as possible. I do have a work light right here attached to my easel. Things that I use, but that is really helpful, particularly if I'm working at night. It helps me to see my colors on my canvas more true to what they are. Lighting is key to success for me in painting. I love to paint from life because I can see contrast so much better. Be it if I'm painting outside or inside, if I'm trying to paint more realistically and show dimension and shadows, lighting is very important. In my studio, I have a table in the middle of the room right now. It has moved from place to place in this space, but currently it's in the middle of the room. And I like to sometimes set up my still life there on the table. I have made a light box. What's called a light box is just a cardboard box. And you can use it to have light bounce around your still life to get a pretty dynamic effect when you're painting. Right now I have a bookshelf where right here close to where I'm looking, so I can set up my still life there. I have a little cafe curtain rod up in the top section of the shelf that I can drape my fabric over, and then I am using some little stickies to help keep the fabric from slipping down, and so I can change that fabric out to whatever color I want to use in my backdrop. So that has helped me when I want to have my light come from one direction, is to have a more focused setup like that rather than using the light box, where sometimes I'll get some reflected light from the behind, and when I paint with the light box, it really makes my paintings glow. Thanks for joining me today and watching this video. I hope it has been helpful to you as you think about setting up your own home studio. Maybe it'll give you a few tips if you already do have a workspace, some things that might help you in your art practices. And if you have found the tips helpful, please like and share this video with friends. And if you would like a PDF of all the products that I have shared with you today, click the link and I'll send it to your inbox. Thanks for joining.